Good morning from Oakville, everyone. It's Anifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be starting a new series about my experiences in Bali. And this is not just to share with you, oh, this is what I saw or this is what I did. It's actually for anyone who might be interested in traveling to Bali because it is a beautiful space. And I think these days, between that older movie called Eat, Pray, Love and Hello Bali and all sorts of different books and articles and advertising that comes from Bali, lots of people are drawn there. And some are like me, which are drawn there because of a calling. And I'll tell you that it really was a very meaningful calling for me that I went there. And of course, I've been practicing meditation for many years, and that's been in Canada. So I will say that I was in a space that when I had this calling, I also knew that I really wanted to meditate in Bali, that my whole purpose there was my journey of this meditative experience. And it's so interesting that no matter where you look online, and you will see, I think anyone who's traveling, now we've got so many resources online that lots of people are doing a lot of research before they travel to a place. And I noticed this, and I did the same thing, and let me tell you, we all know that we can find good information online and we can find some not so useful information online. And I got both too. So a lot of the information that I came across was actually a little bit fear inducing, and some of it was really relaxing and easy. And as you know, I like relaxing and easy. So in this series that I'm making, it's going to be for you to learn from that space about what my experience was in Bali and how it might help you if you're traveling there. Now, I can tell you that because my intention was to meditate, one of the first things that I noticed, and you will too, is the busyness. The traffic is incredibly high, and this is because the population is quite high, and like everywhere else, it's growing, and every city is growing in Canada and North America, and every city is growing over there too, and I will tell you every region is growing in Bali too. And over there, there's a lot of traffic on the roads, and this was the first shock, I'll say, but not really, because I'd read so much about it already. And so I'm here to let you know that there's truth to that. There is a lot of traffic. There's a lot of bikes. There's a lot of motorbikes. There's a lot of people on each bike. So over there, even infants are on many bikes, and most bikes don't even have riders that are wearing helmets, and sometimes they wear helmets. And it's interesting, there's certain laws and rules over there, so I believe that there's a certain distance that if you're traveling within this distance, you don't need it, but if you're traveling beyond that distance, then you do need helmets, so things like that. But there are so many babies that I saw without helmets, and you'll see it too. So this is part of the shock that, wow, it's so different from what we might see in Canada or other parts of the world. But I also want you to know that even with all of that busyness, if you are going for a meditative experience or a spiritual experience, I'm sure you might know about the temples, and there's many, and I'll be talking about that too. But there's a very easy way for us to also be very centered, and it's this beautiful space for reflection. And I found that, I suspect it's because of the years of meditation that I've already done, it was easy for me to meditate in any spot. So even if it was in the front of a busy street, easy for me to get into a meditative spot. And that's within. And it's interesting, a lot of people feel that they have to go to a quiet space or to a retreat or anything else. And of course, there are beautiful retreats over there, and I certainly have experienced them too. But it's not that it's necessary. And I wanted you to know that you can be anywhere in Bali and have a meditative experience. You can create that intention, and of course I'll talk about that a bit more. Today I also wanted to talk about this busyness and how it compares. So here I am in Oakville, and it's very quiet here. And I remember the first pictures I sent back to friends in Bali, the response was, or family even, the response was, wow, it's so clean and it's so quiet. And that's what I feel. It definitely is. So there's a difference that way too. So that's something about when you can imagine that when there's a lot of traffic, we're going to get a lot of, fumes in the air. So people are often wearing masks, not because of COVID, but because there's so much exhaust that is coming from the cars or the bikes. So that's an important thing, that if you're traveling there, you might want to take some extra masks in case you need that for when you're traveling on the roads. And then again, this meditative experience is possible to do anywhere. And certainly if you need any help, you know you can reach out to me. But for now, I thought I'd start with this quotation for this video, which says, "A man who wants to lead the orchestra must turn his back to the crowd." A man who wants to lead the orchestra must turn his back to the crowd. And this is by Max Lucado. And this is what I experienced, that so many times there's so much to do in Bali, and there's so much calling to us. And especially if you know anyone there, you will be drawn into different experiences that are fantastic. I can't say that there was any experience that I had in Bali that wasn't fantastic. And a lot of people will say that about vacationing anyways, right? Well, this wasn't a vacation for me. This was a spiritual journey. And so this awareness of, wow, this is pulling me to see it from a mind perspective of, oh, I'm curious about it, or that would be exciting, or that sort of idea. And when I am there for a meditative journey, and I was very true to this, I knew I had to turn my back to the crowd to be in this space. And this means that I'm not necessarily turning physically, but when I turn inward, I am turning towards myself as opposed to what's on the outside of me. And this is a real skill for us to have and develop, because in our lives there's lots of things that pull us in various directions. There's experiences, there's emotions, there's people, there's activities, and oftentimes that doesn't give us that time of quiet reflection. But you might think that, well, how can you get quiet reflection in a busy place? You really can, and I did. And so I wanted to share that with you, that it's a matter of turning your back to the crowd. And this is, again, turning your back in terms of your sight, your thoughts, your vision is inwards, right? So that's one thing. And then finally, I wanted to finish with this one more quote, because again, sometimes in Toronto, I know when I lived there, and it was really busy, and I was definitely ready to get out of that busyness. And that's why I'm in Oakville. But at the same time, I never really valued the busyness of Toronto. I actually really enjoyed it. I was excited about it. I was in the time of my life that wanted to be around that excitement. And so some people will be in that energy and go to Bali, and some people live there with this sort of energy. But I wanted to make sure that we understand both sides too, because there's a value to each. And so I thought today I'd finish with this quotation, which says, "The desert has its holiness of silence. The crowd has its holiness of conversation." And this is by Walter Elliot. And this, again, this quotation says, the desert has its holiness of silence. The crowd has its holiness of conversation. Now remember, Bali is not a desert, but at the same time, there is a crowd, and there is a holiness in that. And you'll see that there is so much holiness around, whether we see it from temples or ceremonies, and it's regular and consistent, and we see it everywhere. So there's a holiness in that. But then there's just the conversation that we have in our own minds too, of what do I think about this? And I think of it as it is holy. It's all of us. It's everything all at once that we're seeing. Now, the desert, and you know, Oakville is not the desert either, but relatively, I will say that there's a quietness like a desert. There's a peacefulness like the desert. So it's much easier to go within. Yet even in places like Oakville, I find the same thing is happening as in Bali, where everyone's got so much on their minds. I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to see this person, I've got to call this person, I've got to go there. And this is the same thing that happens in quiet spaces in North America. That to silence the mind in even a quiet space takes a mindful attention of my intention is to do this. And why do we do this? Because it is a spiritual journey. I wish you a fantastic day today with just reflecting on this idea of the spiritual journey, no matter where we are, in crowds or in silence. That real silent space is within ourselves itself. And I'm so looking forward to sharing more details with you about Bali and different parts of Bali and some experiences that you may enjoy if you visit. I wish you a fantastic day ahead, and I hope you remember, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day, everyone.